is my first ESL student who was from Spain, and her mother was from Warsaw and her father was from Spain, and she was born and raised there. And at the beginning of her kindergarten year, her parents were killed in a car accident in Spain. So she came to Warsaw to live with her aunt. She had an older sister too. And the stuff that was on her plate when she came, the trauma of her parents, leaving her home and her friends, coming to a new culture, family she really didn't know too much, different language, coming to a big school with new people. And we did not have ESL teachers at that time, but her classmates were her ESL teachers, and they had the empathy that these 5 and 6 year olds had for her was amazing. And one day I heard we were singing, and I heard this little voice, and I glanced toward her, and her lips were moving. And so I just kept going, and then the person next to her all at once started, she's singing, clapping. Well, then the whole class, of course. She looked at me with this astonished face, and I nodded and smiled, and all at once a big smile came on her face, and she took off from that point. She had confidence. I'm sure she was singing and saying things in her head, but didn't have the confidence to do it out loud. That group of 5 and 6 year olds, the empathy that they had was unreal. They made sure she was included in everything, and they were there teaching her. I had one little boy who sometimes he had to tell him to back off. He'd get right in her face and he'd go, 1, and she would repeat it. 2, stuff like that they would do. And in playtime, you heard a lot of them telling her what it is, and she would repeat it with it. It was to see the empathy that these kids had, because they really were her ESL teachers. And they made sure she was never left out. John Marshall was really my second family. The staff and the families. They were there for you when things were going good, and they also were there for you when there was hard times. And it was just family. And with the retired teachers yet, it's still family to us, and we get together quite often to support each other during this time.
My favorite memory is my retirement send-off. Last day of school, 1995, my front doorbell rang, and there's Mr. Steve Miller, the principal, and he said, "We are going out for breakfast. Come on, let's go." So out in front of my house, there's a long white stretch limo waiting for me. So I get in the limo, we go out for breakfast, and we come to school and turn the corner, and there in front of school, the entire student body, staff, waiting to greet me. So the first graders sang a special song for me, and then we proceeded into the school, into my office. My desk was full of flowers and greeting cards. Mr. Miller makes the morning announcements, and he said, "We are going to have an assembly immediately following announcements." So he included me, yours truly, in the assembly, which I usually have to answer the phone. But so we went down for the assembly, and the assembly was a slide presentation about yours truly doing what I do. It's a surprise, I mean. Anyway, then 2 students, former students that were at Horseman, presented me with a gift, and then we went back to class and to school, but I found a private place out in the playground so I could have a heartfelt cry. And that was my fabulous farewell to Marshall. It's just been a place, it was not a job. it was a fun job. We still get together. We have a summer picnic, and we on the first day of school, we have usually meet for breakfast because it is the first day of school and we don't have to be there. So we celebrate. Because of this closeness that we have, we had become, and we still are, like a second family, the Marshall family.
Oh, you know what? There's no way I can do one. They're absolutely not going to happen. But I think about not only my years in the classroom, but the years in the principalship. It was really about the children, the families, the faculty, and the staff, and this big family that we had on the Southeast side. It was just so unbelievable, and it seemed that the same families came back. The same faculty and staff came back, and it was just this very cohesive group. But the memories were of the successes with the kids, and whether it was a Halloween party, or whether it was outside skating, or it was the after-school activities that we offered. I came from a ice hockey background, and then I found out that we offered floor hockey for boys and girls as an after-school activity. And that was just unbelievable. We had so much fun with the kids. And I think the students really had a lot of fun with us too. And there were dedicated staff members here who came back year after year after year to do the after school activities. So this person would always be our basketball coach, and this person would always be our football coach. But just the memories of the students. And now fast forward 40 years, and I see the 8-year-old as a 48-year-old. And then it's just so rewarding. I could go on forever. I think that's the way it was. We had so much fun here. And at the time, and for many years until actually not too many years ago, we had 2 rinks here. So there was a hockey rink, and then there was a skating rink. And when one of the building renovations was done, our principal at the time, Todd Orthman, was able to work with the city and the county to have the warming room as part of the building. So yes, we take students out and skate with them, and it could be our 3rd physical education time where the teacher taught the PE. And sometimes we'd combine grade levels, and the goal was always to have ice skating on Valentine's Day. And those were fun times. So the student body would be out on the ice rinks, and we'd go back to our rooms for Valentine cookies, and I'd always throw the high C out the window because I was on the 1st floor, so I'd be stuck in a snowbank to stay cold. It was just those kinds of things, Diana, that just are so memorable, and that was the culture of the place. That's the way it was. You know, there are so many things, and I think about the kind of the landlockedness of this Southeast Side neighborhood, and John Marshall was really the only act, and so it was the PTO and the faculty and the students and the families and all these things that just made it so special here. Again, I have so many stories about the chili suppers, the ice cream socials, and the events that brought people into the school. In my time here, we were past stunt night because that was back a long time before I got here. But I think some of the things that we did were maybe offshoots of stunt night. So the plays that would take place, or the open houses, or those kinds of things, just unbelievable.
Well, some of the things that I remember, the very first day when I was interviewed for the job, I came in and I met Claude Bickler for the first time. Claude Bickler, to me, is like a mythic figure almost. He was just a great person. He was like a second father to me. Just taught me so much about how to be as a person and how to teach in education. He told us I treat you like professionals, and I expect you to act like professionals. And we did. It was just a great thing. So I remember that. I also remember Arlene Leffel, the secretary, and how friendly she was. I remember coming home after the interview and saying to my wife, everybody was so nice to me there. It just really made me feel comfortable. And so I just feel really, really fortunate that my first job was here at John Marshall. I think the thing about it was all the people that were here. This starting with Claude and then the staff. And the staff, as far as I'm concerned, they're all a bunch of legends. You had Bob Kowalski and Fred Peterson in 5th grade. Jim Godfrey and Marie Short were in 4th grade. Elaine Colden and Marion Sigrid Hall in 3rd grade. And Mary Ament and I were in 2nd grade. And then 1st grade, I think, was Pauline Riedel, Jan Cahotis, and Rosemary Michaelenchik. And then we had Marie Lee as kindergarten teacher. But they were all fantastic people. They were all veterans. I was the rookie, and they were very, very good to me and all helped me whenever I needed things. So that was wonderful. And then also just all the people in this neighborhood were just fantastic. The parents were great. The kids were just awesome. And I just remember I always wanted to come to school every day. It was just like a blast being here and working here. So that's why I love the school so much. A lot of wonderful students that I made lifelong friends with. A lot of the people here I made lifelong friends with. Support staff was wonderful. The custodians, everybody. We had some special needs students. Judy Kafka was teaching them. Carol Felbergy was the aide there. And I'm still really good friends with all of these people. I see Carol a lot, so it was a wonderful thing. Another thing that they did back then that I don't think they do anymore is we had ice skating here at the school. They had a hockey rink and a big area flooded for just regular figure skating. And later on, after I had taught here a few years, we got a new teacher here, Steve Miller, who I'm sure a lot of people know. And he taught 2nd grade, I taught 1st grade, and our rooms were right next to each other. And we got along really well. And we would give up we had it like an hour at noon that was time to eat lunch and get things done. And Steve and I would, every day we would quickly eat our lunch and we would get our skates on and we'd go out there and we would skate with the kids. And it was so fun. It was just great. So very special school and a very special place. I really loved it.
I'm a person that really likes the traditional things, so I have fond memories of the first day of school, watching the students come in with all of their new clothes and all their new school supplies and sitting down in their seats. The traditional things during the school year, the holiday concerts, Valentine's Day, making the boxes and exchanging Valentines, and then the end of the year things like the all-school picnic and the school track meet. I was also the safety patrol coordinator for many years here, so I have fond memories of the students going out and making hot chocolate for them on the real cold mornings and just watching them take that responsibility so seriously and helping the younger children cross the streets. So I don't have any funny or big memories, but really those traditional day-to-day memories really are very, very close to my heart. John Marshall really is one of those neighborhood schools where there's a neighborhood feel, and throughout those 38 years I've really experienced family and community and neighborhood connections and have felt so supported by everyone really here at John Marshall. I've also been very fond of all of the wonderful staff members that I've worked with over the years, and there have been some wonderful colleagues. I can honestly say that every morning I've gotten up and I really wanted to come to work and loved to come to work. making a decision to retire was really hard for all those reasons, and I'm so glad that I can still be here, on occasion to experience those wonderful things.
For Halloween, it was a big deal. Everybody would dress up, and Pauline in kindergarten would start with her kids. And we would do this little parade. And we would weave from room to room, and then each classroom would tack onto the back of the other classroom until we wound up in Fred Peterson's room, and we would all have this little Halloween parade, and it was awesome. Same thing, the Christmas concerts were also something very special. We used to have a faculty-student basketball game that was just a hoot as well. So we would all get out there in our shorts and our tennis shoes and play the boys and girls basketball teams or something like that. And then the last thing, I loved coaching. Carol and I also coached Odyssey of the Mind. I don't know if that's still a thing, but it was kind of you would get a topic and you would have to use your team to create a solution to a problem. And that was really special. And then I also coached girls basketball, and I coached with Elaine Colden because her son was a wrestler. We coached the John Marshall wrestling program. And then the other thing I'm really proud of is I started, not the stunt night, I started a John Marshall talent show. And we had kids that were wonderful, like that were taking violin lessons at the conservatory or piano lessons from somebody or whatever, or just a sing with a guitar. It was just spectacular. And I need to bring up the Mothers Club lunches. That was a biggie. Mothers Club, when I started, this was after stunt night and all this kind of stuff, but the Mothers Club put on this feast. And it was a feast. It was all like potluck, but it was potluck feast. And we would all look forward to this meal that they would put on for us. And it was, am I remembering, it was usually during conferences? So when we have parent-teacher conferences, we could look forward to this wonderful meal. And it was just lovely. And some of the women that were in the neighborhood, I've still had occasion to work with. For example, on Festival of Arts, there were people on the board that I was working with that were John Marshall parents, John Marshall moms that were part of that Mothers Club years ago. So that's been cool. This neighborhood had the best people in it, the best families. They were so supportive of the school and the teachers and their kids, and they would do things for you and get things for you and be here. They were just a wonderful neighborhood family.
Every year we would go to the school forest, and the kids would always look forward to doing that. They were always exciting about going, and it was a great place for learning to take place in a different kind of environment. And not only did they learn things about the outdoors, they learned how to cooperate with each other and work together to get things done, which I think was a valuable thing for the school forest. And I always remember one year, this is amazing, that we were doing things in class because we always kind of did things ahead of time to prepare for going out to the school forest. So we would do things in our science curriculum that was connected to what we were going to be doing out there. And we were talking about the relationship between predator and prey. And I checked out a film that dealt with that. And one of the scenes in there showed a red-tailed hawk with a rabbit as its prey. So we talked about that a little bit after we were done, and then it was time to go to Phi Ed. So on our way down to Phi Ed, we had to go through a hallway that had windows looking out into the courtyard. And in the courtyard, believe it or not, there was a red-tailed hawk that had flown in from the outside and it was in there chewing on a rabbit, which is that would be as coincidental as you can get. The kids couldn't believe that. They thought I had set it up, but I had nothing to do with it. It just happened. So that was one thing I'll always remember. And I also, we worked a lot of times with after-school activities and at John Marshall here, and I spent a lot of time doing that, working with kids in sports and forensics and book bowl and spelling bee and math quiz, and we had a lot of different activities that we were working with the kids at, and that was always fun to do, and I think it helped me in my regular classroom to have been able to work outside of the classroom with kids, to develop a rapport that was, nice to have with them. Safety patrol is another thing that I worked with the kids here for, 25 years or whatever it was. And that was a good learning experience for kids, and we had a good time doing that. As I thought about the school being in the neighborhood like it is here, the John Marshall neighborhood, I thought over the years the neighborhood was really connected to this school in a large way. And the parents of the kids that went to school here, that I taught anyway, were eager to learn. They were well behaved. They were respectful for the most part. And I always said, all the 38 years that I taught here, I never had a bad class. The classes were I always enjoyed each class. And the parents that went the students here were, I think, very supportive of their kids. They came to parent-teacher conferences right on schedule. I think you always had 100% almost of parents that were concerned about what their kids were doing. And a lot of them also were willing to help with activities that were going on during the school year here at school. They put in their time too. And they were supportive of the teachers, I think, that taught here. The administrators that I taught with, and they were all good leaders, and they supported the staff very well, I thought. And secretaries and the support staff that worked here at John Marshall were outstanding. They were always on top of things. They were very helpful to do their job. And the custodial staff, I always kept the building in tip-top shape and nice and clean. And so I would say the people that made John Marshall always be a special thing for me. And I really count my blessings that I was able to spend all my career here at John Marshall. I was very lucky to be able to do that. One thing I probably should mention too, I worked with some great teachers. They were very professional and they were fun to work with, and I'll always cherish the fact that we were able to get along and get things accomplished and do things good for the school. So.
One of my favorite memories was when Senator Herb Kohl, U.S. Senator, came and visited John Marshall, and he came to my classroom and we were studying government, and kids asked him some questions. So that was quite an honor, really. And he came in, then toward the end of his visit, one of the boys asked him about the Bucks, because he at that time owned the Milwaukee Bucks. When I think of John Marshall, I think of the great parents and the great kids from these parents. So I was lucky. I had good kids. Well, I've come to know many of the staff in that 25-year period. Some came and went, and just a great, dedicated, caring staff. And we've always had wonderful leaders, principals, Claude and Steve and Todd Worthman. I had been a principal prior to coming here at Jefferson School in Stettin, so I knew some of these fellas earlier. Well, I enjoyed being here, and I always loved sports, and so I enjoyed coaching. I coached the girls here for several years, basketball, and did the football here. And of course, that track time helped out. As I look back at the different places I've been, a few, it was top-notch as far as the students, parents, colleagues, just great. Fred and I still have breakfast together every few months. And Fred and I hunted together for 30-some years. And so we keep in touch.
I helped start the Mothers Club here, and we had an old kitchen, and there was 3-4 mothers, decided we wanted to come to school and do something for the kids. Popcorn was going to be our first big project. So we had a meeting, and then there were 3 of us that decided. We got the speaker from Wassa Floral, and she had brought a bouquet of flowers and everything, and everybody was impressed. So when she was leaving, thank you for coming, and it was very nice, thank you. And she, here's my bill, $25, and everybody all stood. We haven't thought about paying for anybody. So we all had to look in our wallets, and we dug up $25 to give her. That led us a big lesson. If you're gonna get a speaker, find out what they charge. Us gals got together and we decided we'd meet. We had fun doing that. Popcorn. We each had no money, so we each brought our own poppers. I can remember this. Some of us burnt our popcorn poppers out. We were using them so much. We laughed. We finally got enough money from popcorn to buy a big one. And somebody knew somebody, and Elaine Colvin, a teacher, son worked at one of the theaters, and talked to the manager there if he could buy a big bag of unpopped popcorn. Said they could. Then we got the big popper, we went out and bought a popper, and we had more fun. And near the end, then they'd have a big dinner. We'd put on a dinner for the teachers in the library, a potluck. Mothers would bring everything, and they could come in there and eat. There's so many of the staff that are still my best friends, and I still communicate with a lot of them. We could have dinners together. I remember a dinner at our house for everybody. We had a fun dinner. It was crazy, but we had fun. And husbands and wives, and we all got together, and we always had a good time.
To draw pictures, which was my favorite thing in life, and sing songs. And even though the teacher was not sure if I was an alto, soprano, or something else, she let me sing just as loudly as I wanted to. Every teacher and grade had something special about it. In first grade, a clown with balloons and the names of 3 colors, red, yellow, and blue, was in front of the class. I thought I had made it until the teacher took the balloons down, and I was one of the youngest first graders and had trouble learning how to read. I remember my report card said, "Patsy is falling down in reading." And I thought, falling down must be really bad. In 2nd grade, something wonderful happened in December. Miss Heck, our teacher, brought a real Christmas tree to our classroom, and we all made decorations from colored paper to hang on it. We exchanged names on the last day of school before Christmas. We opened up our packages. David Johnson, who could read really well, read all the names and delivered the packages. My package was the littlest one of all, so I knew it wasn't paper dolls or a coloring book, as I had hoped. Instead, it was a golden nightingale pin fit for a princess. The teacher had me pass it around, which I'm sure made Robert very, very happy. By 3rd grade, David Johnson and I were voted by the class to appear on the radio of Quiz Kids. I failed to win first prize when another school submitted a question about Kazakhs. We hadn't studied them yet, and I still remember the question: what is the Kazakhs' favorite food? I had no idea what the heck a Kazakh was, and their favorite food was kumis or curdled mare's milk. But now I know where Kazakhstan is, and I learned that when I was 7. 4th grade, we had Mary, a very talented reader, who read from her father's old books, chapter by chapter, of Raggedy Ann and Andy. I always worried about what was happening to them on the weekend. That was one of my biggest worries in 4th grade, was what were Raggedy Ann and Andy doing while I was home, safe and sound, playing. Every year, the whole school put on a spring operetta. It was a big production with dancers, costumes, makeup, songs, a backdrop painted by the students, dances. It was a whole production, and everyone in the school took part in it in some way. I was chosen to be one of the main roles. I was chosen to be, of all things, Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Andy was a tall, red-haired boy with freckles. He was a year younger than I was, but a lot taller than I was. And we made a perfect pair. We learned our lines. Well, I was the only star of a musical who never sang a note, but I didn't realize that until years later, and I did learn all my lines, which was difficult for me to learn by heart. By 6th grade, we were the upperclassmen, and we were relegated to the managerial skills of putting on the operetta. We helped write the script, we painted the backdrop, and I remember my design won for the old woman in the shoe. It was a huge boot big enough for children to hide behind. And it had holes in it, tears in it, rips in it. But when you turned it around, it was a beautiful white house with green shutters, and the round toe of the boot became a one-car garage. I was really sad to leave John Marshall that fall. It felt almost like home to me, and I think I could have walked there with my eyes shut. I remember how the stairs felt, and I remember the admonition from the teachers, hang on to the banister. I was really sad to leave that fall. It felt almost like home to me. And to walk blocks and catch the city bus and ride downtown to go to junior high was like going to another planet. I felt I had grown up and was no longer a little grade school girl. I missed my old neighborhood school and all the children and teachers that were so special there. Mr. Anderson was our principal. He was tall, white-haired, very regal, and left me with these words. Every morning he began his talk on the loudspeaker with these words: use, but don't abuse. And every night at the end of school, he would say, and remember, use, but don't abuse. It was a little difficult to understand what he was saying, but he had a very Norwegian accent, and his words come back to me, but just the way he spoke them. And I will never forget my days at John Marshall. They were some of the happiest ones of my life and the most memorable.